What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Watch Before You Die podcast. This is kind of one of our special episodes that we've been test running, trying out, where we do things a little differently. We're not reviewing a movie. We're going to do some blind ranking of some films and debate whether we think they should go in a slot 1 through 5, not knowing what's coming next. And we're going to look at a controversial movie opinion and discuss it, and hopefully have opinions on it. If not, we're sorry, and we'll try to do better or maybe reformat that episode. So we are going to start with our blind ranking. Now, this is blind for both Brian and I. I don't know what's coming next. He doesn't know what's coming next. So there's going to be some back and forth. And I also don't know what genre of movie they're pulling from. Ooh. So the first one that I've been given, we have a blank board, is The Shining. Okay. Where does The Shining fit on a list of 1 through 5? And this is tough for me because I think I could go pretty high with this.
This is tough for me because I don't think I've ever watched The Shining.
Oh, really?
Really. It is a movie that is on our Watch Before You Die list, and we have not gotten to it.
I'm very, very opinionated on the fact that I think The Shining is probably like a top horror film. Okay. I think it is right up there at the top of the list for me as far as like very, very good films that stand the test of time. So I would put it in like a 2, probably a 2 for me, but I don't know if you want to just go safe and put it in 3 since you've never seen it.
I'm going to put it at 2 just because of the following that it has. Like personally, it might fall later, but it just stands to reason that this is one of the classic movies. I've heard multiple people say that they like it. So I think I feel comfortable putting it at 2. I might kick myself later. But
Right. I don't know what's coming next. So we are going to put The Shining at 2. Oh, no. The next movie is Inglourious Bastards, and this is already heartbreaking because Inglourious Bastard is probably one of my favorite movies of all time across all genres. I literally just rewatched it like a couple weeks ago because I hadn't seen it recently, and it's just so good.
It's a classic.
The storyline's good. The acting is fantastic. Oh my gosh. I just saw an interview with Christopher Waltz, is that his name?
Mm-hmm. Christoph Waltz.
Christoph Waltz. And he was talking about how the everybody who's speaking in different languages in that film actually knew the languages they were speaking. Like they didn't learn them. They were fluent in them already. He speaks like four or 5 languages himself. So this hurts me.
That movie has so many like good Easter eggs, like the 3 like this instead of like this, and like just the directing and the acting is all top notch. It's so good.
I mean, we can't go number 1, can we? I mean we can't leave 3 through 5 not knowing what's coming next, can we?
I'll rate this one first. I'm going to put this one at number 3 and hold out hope that there is a better movie coming. But like, just know that I want to put this at number 1. Like, this is a great movie.
I'm with you. I think this could be number 1. I think probably it would have been safer to go 2 on it. But we've done that. So I will put it at 3.
All right.
And leave us 1, 4, and 5. The next film, this is controversial in and of itself, The Godfather.
Okay. This is another one that's going to be tough for me because I haven't seen The Godfather.
And this is a tough one for me because I don't like The Godfather.
Okay.
So, and that's a very controversial take for the world. Justin, who used to be a part of our podcast, and may someday be again, who knows, but he is a huge Godfather fan. He and I have argued back and forth about it. It's just not my style of film. It's just not something I would choose to watch regularly or pick up. So I would put this right at 5, but I think that's definitely a controversial take as far as these movie lists go.
I hate to just keep
Brian hasn't seen it.
I hate to keep just doubling up your score. I think Godfather is probably a classic movie, but I don't think I don't think it's one that I would, even if I enjoyed it. It's a pretty heavy, like I know what it's about. And I know references to it. I don't think it's one that I'd like rewatch every weekend or like just love. Right. So I'm going to keep mirroring you. I'm going to put it at 5 and leave 1 and 4 open. Maybe we'll split on 1 and 4, but so far.
Yeah, so far we're okay.
We got the same list.
So far. All right. So next up is, this is interesting, Forrest Gump.
Yes. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and jump in and put it at number 1. I love Forrest Gump. I don't think it's actually probably better than Inglourious Bastards, all things considered. But man, is Forrest Gump a fun ride. Like Every scene is good. Every story that's told. I love Forrest Gump, and I would rewatch that all the time.
I actually think Forrest Gump, it's not a film I've seen recently. It's a film I remember watching as a kid. I've seen it as an adult. Excuse me. And I think actually Forrest Gump kind of stands the test of the time. It has comedy. It has a great storyline. It has heartbreak. Like, I literally remember crying as a kid watching Forrest Gump when they're at war and Bubba Gump and all of the storyline there. I just really think this is a very good film. Now, personally, like you said, it's not my number one for this list. I would watch Inglourious Bastards and probably The Shining before I would watch this film again. But I think it fits in well for one, hoping number 4 will slot in and not be like a top film. So, all right, we're leaving number 4, and let's see what number 4 is going to be for us. It is The Wolf of Wall Street.
Okay. I rewatched this like less than a month ago, I think. I rewatched it.
Yeah. I'm actually happy with that because The Wolf of Wall Street is a good film.
Yeah.
But it's not my favorite film. It's not, I've seen it a few times, but it's not one that I recommend to people necessarily. You know, I'm not like, go watch Wolf of Wall Street. It's got some really popular, famous clips, you know, that I see all the time, but
it's got some heavy language, heavy drug use, stuff like that. So it's not necessarily like the most friendly movie that you'll watch, but I think the acting is incredible in it. Like, I think Leo does a great job. I think it has hilarious moments. It has dramatic moments. It has intense moments. I still remember like the reveal of, you know, he thinks he successfully drives the car home without a scratch. And then like the realization of what actually happened on the way home is a pretty hilarious like scene. Yeah. So, no, I like that movie at number 4. I think that fits. I think it's definitely lower than Inglourious Bastards, and I can't say about The Godfather, but I think overall I'm pretty happy with the list.
Yeah, so just to recap our list, at number 1, we landed on Forrest Gump. Number 2, The Shining. I think we could shift that down now that we've seen the list. Number 3, Inglourious Bastards. Number 4, Wolf of Wall Street. And number 5, The Godfather. I'm actually pretty happy with that list, considering we have no clue what was going to come next. So that has been our blind ranking of movies for tonight. And now I'm going to hit you with some controversial takes. Now, just as a reminder, if you didn't see our first episode, these are not from me. I went to Reddit. I looked up most controversial movie takes or most outrageous movie takes or most hated movie takes and just pulled some that I thought we might be able to discuss, we might relate to. I am hoping this one's going to relate to Brian because we did Star Wars last time.
Yep.
I won't say that we were boring, but we weren't the most interested in the films. We
just
didn't have a lot to say.
We don't have that hot of takes like on Star Wars.
No.
Like,
we didn't. Star Wars is just Star Wars. We're not all in. Neither of us is a fanatic, so we didn't have strong opinions. Now I'm hoping, having known Brian for a long time, that my memory has served me correctly.
Okay.
And this is going to hit for him. If not, you'll find out very quickly because he'll be like, don't care. So here is the opinion. I'm not going to give the name. This is 4 years ago. Reddit. I'm not going to say the language they used. I will just family friendly it a little bit. But here it is. I freaking despise Scott Pilgrim versus the World. One of the only movies I couldn't bring myself to finish. Everything about it is disgustingly awful, and I have no idea what the appeal to it is if you aren't 12. Not done here. The acting is horrendous. Michael Cera is crap, as usual, and Scott is a dick. I can't think of a different word for it. The plot and editing physically hurts me with how much it makes me cringe. Painfully unfunny and try hard. Genuinely one of the worst films I've seen.
Brutal.
How we feel about that one, Brian?
Well,
do I remember correctly in thinking that you like Scott Pilgrim versus the World? You
remember correctly. If I had to rank my favorite movies, if Scott Pilgrim's not number 1, it's near the top.
Yes, I thought I remembered that about you.
I love Scott Pilgrim.
I think you introduced the film to me, if I remember correctly.
Behind my stack of LP records back here, I have Scott Pilgrim versus the World soundtrack. I love Scott Pilgrim versus the World. The movie came out on my birthday. When I was in college and I had a group of friends, we all went and watched it together. It's based off the comic books. And I mean, I just think that Edgar Wright is an incredible director. Like if you've seen many of his films, he could be considered a love him or hate him style, but the editing for the movie, the music for the movie, it's made to be very punk, very comic book style, very animated, and it's not really supposed to be. I mean, I could totally see somebody watching this and being like, it's not for me, right? But to say that it's crap is pretty bad. And
not just say that it's crap, it's one of the worst films they've ever seen.
I couldn't disagree more. But the only thing that the one point that he made is a point that I made all the way back then, and that is I love Michael Cera as Scott Pilgrim, but I wish they would have cast somebody else. I think it could have been just as good with an unknown Scott. But if you look at the star-studded cast that they had in Scott Pilgrim versus the World, if you think about it, they had Superman. They had I'm trying to think of, like, they had Brie Larson before she was Captain Marvel. They had Alison Pill. They had Knives Chow, who was Ellen Wong. They had Kieran Culkin. They had, I mean, the star-studded list just goes. Aubrey Plaza before she was
one of the Chris's, one of the superhero Chris's was in it. Chris, not Pine, Chris, Captain America.
I can't think of his name.
Yeah, he was. It was. I just actually rewatched Scott Pilgrim versus the World because I hadn't seen it in years, and I thought I need to revisit this because Netflix just re-upped the adaptation, but animated style kind of went a different direction a little bit.
Did you watch Scott Pilgrim Takes Off?
I started it. I have not finished it yet.
Okay, I finished it. I thought it was pretty creative because at first I thought they were just redoing the movie as a series, and then really it takes a big turn.
I'll have to finish it then.
Obvious small hint in the background. Also, I'm a bass player and Scott's a bass player. I mean, for me, I think it just really hit when I was in college. It just really hit that sweet spot for me. And so it's one of those things that I love. And I understand that it's not for everybody. But I definitely disagree with this Reddit user. So
I think this Reddit user has an interesting approach. Now, I do agree. I don't think Scott Pilgrim is for everybody. Like I vaguely remember trying to show this film to like random people I knew or like a random girlfriend at a time. And they're like, this isn't doing anything. Like, this is just not my style of film. For like a comic book nerd like me, I love the editing. I think it's fantastic. For music people, the soundtrack's incredible. I think it has a lot of redeeming qualities. I do think, like, having rewatched it recently, Michael Cera is the low point of the film, which is funny because he is meant to be the main character to a degree. That's up for debate, I think, but he is kind of the main character, and I think he is a bit. Well, he's Michael Cera, and he's the same in almost every film that I've ever seen him in. He's not much of a method actor. He's just, how can we put kind of a nerdy loser guy into a role and let him be himself?
And see, that's in the comic books, Scott Pilgrim is kind of like the schoolyard bully. He's not actually supposed to be like this kind of frail, wafy
self-deprecating person. Yeah.
And so like his first fight with Matthew Patel is actually supposed to be like, they're meant to fight because he's kind of the rough and tumble bully guy. Whereas the first time that Michael Cera fights in the movie, it's almost like, wait, what am I watching right now? Like, it's kind of because
he's about to get whooped.
You're like, what? But I really think it's I think it's different strokes for different folks. I do think that almost everybody universally agrees, like, if you like rock music and grungy, like kind of hard music, like the soundtrack is incredible for the movie. They had Beck record one of the songs for the soundtrack. I mean, just it's overall, I could talk about it for too long, but I think it's great. I think it's a good movie.
I also think for me, like, when I watched this, I remember watching this and it was like, I thought the comic book style thing was cool. I thought the music was incredible. I liked the way the film flowed. But what struck me, I remember watching it as like a young, college age kid or a little bit, maybe even closer to high school, is like this reality of like, he is in love with someone, or he is trying to love someone who's uninterested. And that was so relatable to like a young guy. Like, I think every guy universally has had that feeling of like, oh, I love this girl. And they're like, she's like, no, first of all, no. Yeah. And second of all, I'm going to make you work for it, and still probably no. You know what I mean? Like, it's just that feeling of like, I always thought that was very enjoyable. And I think the actress who played Ramona Flowers is fantastic. Like, she plays it perfectly.
Mary Elizabeth
She makes
Winstead.
you almost, as a guy, again, speaking as a guy, you feel like you are Scott at times. Like, you're falling in love with her and she's just not interested, kind of a thing. And so I enjoy this film. It's not in the top for me. Like, I knew Brian loved it. That's why I kind of pinpointed on this Reddit user, but like, I do think it's a good film. This was a wild take to me. As I was scrolling through the Reddit, I'm like, I don't think I've ever heard somebody actively hate Scott Pilgrim. I've had people say, not for me, but like, to say like editing's bad, music sucks, acting terrible, flow awful. I was like, this person has a vendetta. Like, Michael Cera hurt them in a previous life. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It was wild. So yeah,
I will say, at my job, like, there was a day that we were having a movie night, and the theme was somebody's favorite movies, and so it was going to be a secret who it was, and it was me, and they asked me to pick 3 movies to play for the movie night, and so the first movie I picked was Shawshank Redemption, because it's a very universally accepted, like, pretty good movie, and it would be hard to guess who it was. The second movie was The Truman Show, and the third movie was Scott Pilgrim versus the World. And I love those 3 movies. The reason I say that is because everybody hung around to watch Shawshank Redemption. Everybody hung around to watch The Truman Show. Like, everybody liked those movies. Scott Pilgrim started, and almost everybody, like,
really?
Yeah, I got other stuff to do. Like, it wasn't really time. So I was like, you know, I think as you get older, it might be harder to buy into, for sure.
Yeah.
And that's okay. But I still think it's a great movie.
I do think it's a great movie. And in other just totally unrelated news, I saw Shawshank Redemption possibly lost its #1 spot on IMDb. Just a random, I'm going to throw that in there. Dune Part 2 out March 1st. This episode will probably be after March 1st, but March 1st has already come in on IMDb as the highest ever rated film. Now, I think it'll drop down, and I think Shawshank Redemption and Godfather and all those will reclaim their spots. But for the first time ever in like the IMDb world, Shawshank lost its top spot. So I guess go see Dune Part 2 if you watched Part 1 and let us know what you thought. And
we're giving recommendations.
Let us know what you think about our tier list, where you would have ranked those 5 movies. And also let us know your thoughts on Scott Pilgrim, because I have a feeling there's some people out there that might watch this podcast that have strong feelings about Scott Pilgrim, one way or the other. You're listening to 2 dudes who are both somewhat nerdy and like that style of film. So that's the hardest part about controversial takes, is Brian and I have similar movie taste, not to the same degree. But we have similar takes, so it's hard to argue on some of these. But I do still think I have some out there that might stir an argument. And I'm open I do have some strong opinions. Debate.
I would love to get some of these hot opinions in our comments so we could talk about them in episodes.
Please do. Yeah, because we're going to try to do a regular episode, as you've seen, and then kind of a bonus episode here and there, just to keep it fresh and enjoyable. And for those of you who don't want to watch the movies along with us, you can at least enjoy a blind ranking and some controversial takes. So, and give us your hot movie take in the comments so we can maybe debate yours. So that's been us. I'm Ben. This is Brian. We are the Watch Before You Die podcast, and we'll see you next time.